Today I have a sad tale of misery and woe, but it ends in victory. So I was driving home from work one day and it just died, all of a sudden died, just completely died. And tried to restart it. I probably beat the crap out of that starter trying to get it started back up again. It would not do anything. The accelerator pump wouldn't shoot any fuel out. That's the first thing I noticed. I taken the air cleaner off. Secondaries were fine, but the bowl was still full. So popped the bowl off the primary side, still no fuel. Checked the fuel filter before the pump, and there was fuel still. So I thought maybe the pump went out. This is the original. It's an old AC Delco pump, I believe. It's very old. It was on the car whenever I got it, so I assumed that the pump had finally failed. Get it back home, take the pump off, and I realized that the cam eccentric on the end of the camshaft that actuates the fuel pump the bolt had backed off, and the eccentric was just sitting around under the timing chain cover. So I took the front end apart, got to it, fixed it, put the timing chain back on. I went ahead and took the timing chain off, and then I put some blue Loctite and retorqued the cam thrust plate screws because those were loose as well. I'm the one who installed those originally. I don't think I used Loctite. Today I kind of just want to tell you guys about what happens to Reno and how you can avoid that happening to you, how to do things right, and just avoid calamity and disaster. I put everything back together. I've installed this timing chain is one of the ones you can adjust the crank sprocket. You can advance it and retard the sprocket, so that way you can advance or retard the camshaft timing. And I've installed this timing chain on two different motors, this one originally and then 390, so I thought I knew what I was doing. I did not research it or look it up or anything, so I've done it before, I thought. Long story short, I put the timing chain on incorrectly. I bent 6 push rods and apparently collapsed the lifters, and I also bent a rocker shaft. Here's how to avoid doing that. So this is a stock FE crank sprocket. So this goes on the crankshaft. It's keyed to the crankshaft, and there is your timing dot. It's right here. Kind of hard to see on the camera, but it's right there. The crank sprocket that I have on my 352, it's a Ford Performance timing set. It has a bunch of keyways and a bunch of timing dots. And what I had done was I had lined up the dot with the cam. I had the cam dot facing straight down with the cam sprocket. So I had the dot right here. And then I had not lined the keyway up with the 0 degree dot. So I had originally set it to 4 degrees advanced. So what I had done was I had just set the dot to dot, and then the 0 degree keyway was like over here. But the keyway needs to be set up with the dot first at 0 degrees. Straight up and down to match this. And then you take your sprocket back up and then advance it or retard it, whichever way you want to do with your sprocket. To avoid failure, make sure your keyway should be the same as the timing dot, and then you just need to make sure that's straight up and down with the cam sprocket. So that's what I should have done. I messed up, bent 6 push rods, and learned valuable lessons. After putting it together, I just instantly went for the starter to start it because I thought it would just fire right back up. What you should do is take you a wrench and turn the engine over by hand so you can feel it. So what had happened is the intake valves hit the pistons because the cam was out of time with the crank. So make sure whenever you put the timing chain back on, roll the engine over by hand several times just to make sure everything's all good. So I changed the push rods out. I did not at that time realize that the rocker shaft was bent on the one side. I did not really check the push rod preload. I just put the same size push rods that were in it before. And I had some very clattery valve train. Even after a while of running, it was still tapping. I could feel the rocker that was the culprit. Now that I know the rocker shaft was bent, and that's what was giving us some funky things happening. So I tried different lifters. I pulled the lifters out of the yellow truck to try and fix it. You know, that did not work. Had the intake off and on like 4 or 5 times just trying to get it to work where it wouldn't clatter as much as it did. So eventually, after trying all that, you know, the engine was still running fine, but we had a clattery valve train after I fixed the timing chain thing and the push rods. So what I did was I ordered a new cam for it and a new set of lifters. I was just going to get a new set of lifters, but I figured I might as well get a cam too because this cam has been broken into so many different lifters. I didn't want to hurt it. So I ordered an Edelbrock part number 2106 cam. I'll show you guys the cam card here after a while, but it's a mostly stock cam. It's got very similar specs as the original camshaft, just a little more duration I think and a little more lift. And then a new set of lifters. So I got that installed. I was checking my pushrod preload. I was checking my lifter preload with the pushrods when I noticed that whenever I torqued the bolts down the rocker shaft, the preload changed a lot. So I took that section off. I took the rocker arm and rocker shaft assembly off, and I laid it on the ground, and you could rock it back and forth, and it would rock like a banana. So thankfully I had the rocker shafts from the 352 or the 390. I just had an extra rocker shaft that was not bent. I tested it. It did not rock like a banana. I switched everything over to that one, retorqued it down, and discovered that it fixed my problem there. So I'm thinking that was what caused the battery valve train, not the cam, not the lifters. So anyway, after all that, the intake valves had hit the pistons, so I decided to not use those heads because I figured the intake valves could have potentially been bent, and that was not something I wanted to have. I had the 390 heads from my blown up 390. Those had been freshly redone, surfaced. Had a 3-angle valve job done on them, and new hardened exhaust seats, new valve guides, stiffer springs, and new valves. So those were some good heads to put on there. I went ahead and I port matched the ports to the intake and the exhaust. The port matching stuff I'll talk about in a different video. I'm not really professional, but I did find some interesting things out about FE heads. This is the cam card for the cam that I bought. I bought it from Edelbrock, but I realized after I got it that Edelbrock owns comp cams because I was surprised that it was a comp cam in the box. But the cam and lifter set that I bought from him, after the 20-minute break-in, the cam survived, and I'm very happy with it. I feel like it does have more power than the other cam did. It's got good amount of duration, good amount of lift for a very stock, very torquey, streetable cam. It basically sounds the same as my other cam, and it runs just a little bit stronger, I think, than the other cam did. So after all that, I got everything back together while the engine was still in the car. A lot of work, but eventually got it back together, and now I'm very happy with it. It runs very good. I wanted to make sure I told you guys before I forgot what happened somewhat, but I got plenty more ideas coming out here soon. Really hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll see you next time on It'll Run.